Hello, I'm Frank J. Mervan. I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress. Today I'm here with Dr. Vernon Smith, who's also a state representative and a professor at IUN within the education department. Dr. Smith is someone who's been integral in public education. He's a former teacher, and we are going to get his views and be able to discuss with him 3 or 4 topics that are important to me and to you, hopefully, about public education and how that enhances our community. It gives kids of opportunities. And Dr. Smith, it's a pleasure. How are you?
Well, it's my pleasure to be here with you, Frank. I've watched you from afar. I know how committed you are to public education. I know how knowledgeable you are. And so I'm glad to be a part of this effort to get you elected. I think it's very important for us to have a congressman who has not only appreciation for education, but who's able to debate the issues that are associated with education. And I know that you're knowledgeable, and I know you have the passion. So it's full speed ahead for you, and that's what my desire is.
Well, I thank you very much. And one topic that I wanted to be able to absolutely address and be able to talk about is our campaign. And I have been involved and engaged with the schools for over 15 years. And with that, when we've helped remove obstacles for students to be able to learn on the economic side, we've worked with teachers and social workers and counselors in Title I. But the one aspect that I want people to know is that I've been endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers, which is the educators union in one of the larger ones in Northwest Indiana. And what is important to them is equal pay or salaries that reflect the nation for educators. And in Indiana, we have one of the lowest salary rates for teachers across the United States. We rank in the last 5 of the United States. And I just wanted you to be able to talk about how important it is to attract talent and new talent into that field and how that impacts our schools and our school systems.
Well, as you're probably aware, we're constantly comparing ourselves to other nations. And when we do that, we come back and we talk about a longer day. We talk about raising up the high expectations for educators and for students. We talk about having a more demanding curriculum and so forth. But what we fail to do is look at those countries and see that in those countries that they pay teachers, educators, only second to doctors and lawyers because they want the brightest and the smartest as educators. But over here, what do? We beat up on teachers. We beat up on teacher unions. We don't celebrate the positive things that teachers do, but we put it on the loud horn what the few negative educators might do. And so what we have is an absence of a teaching force that we need. One of the ways that we can do it is pay them better, okay, like other countries do. We can stop beating up on them and you know, at one point, education and teaching was a career that people gave honor to. That's not the case now. And then we must create some incentives. We ought to help them with the cost of pre-service preparation when they're at the collegiate level, at the university level. We ought to pay them. So if we really want to make it a high priority to have good teachers, then we need to put the money behind the recruiting of teachers.
And something that I want to make perfectly clear is I have been endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers. And as your member of Congress, we have to understand that the funding for the majority of education comes through the state, but there's a lot of federal funding, such as Title I that I mentioned that I work with. And there's also the issue of making sure that people understand that when it comes to public education, one of the reasons why we have a woefully a distribution formula that is inequitable is because there is private dollars being siphoned off to private for-profit charter schools. And so that starts off in Washington, where the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, has the philosophy of owning private charter schools and making sure people are profiting off of that. And I think that our government, and as your member of Congress, I'm going to make sure that we focus on making sure that if there is investments of your tax dollars in public education, that directly goes to public education. Something that's important for me to be able to communicate is one of my opponents is endorsed by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. the Indiana Chamber of Commerce has.
Can I add some boo on that? I've
Right.
had experience with them.
Right. And so if you have a micro view or a very small-minded view, when you talk about it, and this my opponent begins to talk about, well, we're for small businesses. We understand everyone is for small business, especially now through this national crisis and through this pandemic that we're going through. We all want to be able to create incentives and we all want to support our small businesses. But what the Indiana Chamber of Commerce agenda is and what they're proud of is, one, they want to bring right to work, and they did. That was their greatest accomplishment. Two, they want to be able to bust up collective bargaining.
Yes.
And three, they led the campaign for charter schools and making sure that public dollars are going to private schools. If you could talk about that, and then I'll kind of alleviate as a legislator and as an educator.
Well, the business entity has looked at public education. They see it's a source of dollars. I think if anything destroys this country, it's going to be the love of money. And because they want to get hold of the money, they start first with creating textbook companies to get money, creating supplemental materials to get the educational dollars. And then they say, wow, there's a big pot of money out there for those entities that are running schools. And so they came with a false premise that they could do it better because they were going to do it business style. Well, you ought to run schools like a business, but they're not a business. Business wants to make a profit. And so these charter schools are making profits off of students, and they're doing cutbacks. What we've had is a large number of teachers who are not certified, that don't have licenses, they're not prepared. We think that anybody can teach. That's a great misnomer. That is not the case. And then they're cutting back on all expenses so that they can make a profit off of our children. Who are the losers? Children of color and children of poverty.
Right.
They're the ones that are losing in this. And Congress has not been concerned about that because their children pretty much are going to private schools, or they live in communities where they don't live in poverty.
Right.
And so we need to reevaluate what we're trying to do. Our greatest natural resource in this country is our people, and we got to invest more in our people and make sure the investment is going to produce greater achievement.
Right. And when the Chamber of Commerce and everyone pushed for charter schools, what you need to understand is the economic model that they put together. You don't see a lot of charter schools in Cherville, St. John, and Dyer.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see a lot of charter schools in Valparaiso or Chesterton.
Yeah.
What you see is a strong public education process going forward, and that's what our whole district, and as a member of Congress, I'm going to advocate for. And so the system and what we need to learn is that when I'm in Washington, D.C., one of the main components why I'm running is I want to be able to make a difference and bring people together. And there's a committee, which is Labor and Education in Washington, D.C., and that's the committee that I strive to be on when I become your member, because it'll tie in our steel industry, which I've been endorsed by the United Steelworkers, and also education, which is the main component of Northwest Indiana, making sure that we give opportunities to all our young people. And more importantly, you look at the education model to be able to bring in the public dollars that is necessary to uplift the curriculum and to be able to make sure that the funding is equitable. A couple programs that I've worked on and have absolutely followed through that I'm proud of was in the city of East Chicago. For 4 years, I and Colonel Liggins and the East Chicago School Board, Stacy Winfield, Joel Rodriguez, Jesse from East Chicago. His name is escaping me. I'm having a senior moment,
We
but
all
that's
have
okay.
them.
It's Jesse Gomez.
Gomez.
So we came together and they worked for 3 years trying to, if not longer, trying to be able to get the ROTC program at East Chicago Central. And I, along with Colonel Liggins, were there, boots on the ground, making sure we did everything that we could to bring an ROTC program to the school city of East Chicago, which uplifts the school, which gives great pride for those individuals that participate. It gives structure, and outcomes show those that participate have greater grades and greater school activities, and there's a sense of pride in the community. And so there's over 200 kids that participate in that now. We were able to get the uniforms, the curriculum, and Sergeant Smith and Jones who are there. But those types of curriculums is what makes a difference in a school. The other thing that I have firsthand knowledge with was working with the Hammond school system at Hammond High. Linda Randolph and another individual worked very hard. Hammond High had a grade that needed to be uplifted. So as my elected capacity, what we did is we worked with parents in the community. Those parents who were receiving assistance with us, my staff called them and made it basically mandatory for them to be able to go to the parent-teacher conferences, the report card pickups, and to make sure that they were engaged in their school system. And we went from a lower grade to about a C grade and then to a B grade. So if you have that interaction, and when I'm engaged with the school system, I'm not just sitting down reading a book, I'm trying to make a difference. And as a member of Congress, that's what I'm absolutely positively going to do. Dr. Smith, if there is any other another topic that you'd like to talk about that you find is important.
I want to talk about you.
Okay.
Okay. It's no secret that you care, Frank, and that's why I'm here, because I know that you care. You have been out in the forefront. You didn't wait until you needed Gary, needed Maryville, needed Griffin, needed Hobart, or any other parts of Lake County or the surrounding counties. You were there when those people needed you, and that's the difference. I know that you're knowledgeable, that you have the technical skills, and most of all, you have the interpersonal skills to be successful. You care. You care about education, you care about other people. You want people to have the quality of life that you had, and you want them to have a quality of life even better than what you had. And so that is the kind of person that we need sitting in Washington, D.C. representing us, that care more about the people than they do themselves. Now, charity does start at home with you, but you spread it abroad, and you do it in a most admirable way. And so I am so pleased to endorse your candidacy. I have great faith in you. I know that you believe in a higher being, and that you're going to follow him in providing great services to Northwest Indiana.
All right, thank you, Representative Smith. With that, what I want to close with is, as an elected official, I've helped people get through financial crises and stabilize people's homes. I've worked very hard and passed a law through the Indiana State Legislature, which was No More Secrets, that educated and empowered young people. Indiana ranked second in the United States with child-reported molestation cases. And we brought survivor groups together. We brought the Child Protective Services, we brought the legal entities and Fairhaven, and we went and we developed a curriculum. And we talked to 11,000 young people, K through 12, in the schools in Hammond, Whiting, East Chicago, Highland, Munster, in Gary, and in Griffith. And we went to Chesterton. And what we did is we specifically talked about how predators push boundaries. And we educated young people on how to say no, and how when they get that icky feeling, to act on it and to talk about a trusted adult. And now a lot of subjects that people don't like talking about, but human trafficking over the internet. Law enforcement talks about that every single day, where people try and lure kids on the internet to go buy sneakers or to go buy a cell phone. And we had that education where if something's too good to be true, you never ever go anywhere when someone says, hey, come meet me to buy something that is, too good to be true. And that little sliver of education, 73 young people came forward and were substantiated by Child Protective Services. We took that data that we were able to get from the schools, and we took it to Indianapolis, and we passed a piece of legislation that protects young people. We followed that up with mental health access. Social and emotional learning is something that is critical to the educational component. This day and age, when young people have any kind of trauma, the teachers are the ones that recognize that is what is preventing them from being successful. And so we've worked on that. If you'd like to talk about the evolution, and then we'll wrap things up, the evolution of social and emotional learning and how teachers are engaging that, and how workshops are off the charts with teachers with that today. When
we talk about people, we talk about the affective domain, the cognitive domain, the social, I'm going blank too.
Social and economic.
No, the affective domain, the cognitive domain, and social motor domain. What we fail to do many times, we certainly focus on the cognitive domain because that's all about education. But we many times, and of course those children act that out in the psychomotor domain with their behavior, but we fail to spend time on the affective domain. getting into the values of children, getting into their mindsets and the way they think and what's important to them. We have not been very successful recently to get children to value education. Those of us who came from poverty, a greater poverty than what children are even experiencing today, those of us who were prohibited at one point to not get an education, we valued education. It was a bootstrap effect. It was a way to get a better job. But there are other values other than economic values that come from quality educations. You feel better about yourself, your self-esteem, the things that you will do, and so forth. And so when teachers tell me they don't have time to deal with the affective domain, I tell them, if you deal with the affective domain, you can get more out of the cognitive domain and more out of the improved behavior on the parts of children, because you'll be attacking that psychomotor domain as well. And so I just think that you have to look at the social and economic issues. The social issues should not be an excuse, but it should be a reason why children are learning. So you don't run from problems, you run to problems and solve them. And we've got to deal with some of the social issues in this country before we are able to successfully educate all our children to their fullest potential.
And I agree. And I kind of want to close, and I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to thank you for your support and your commitment to education over the years, and being an advocate in the Indiana State Legislature. And your endorsement of my campaign means a great deal. What I want to close with is, there's no greater power than the power of an education and the power of opportunity. And so, as your next member of Congress, I'm going to focus on making sure that public education dollars goes towards public education, and that we stop diverting education and diluting the amount of dollars, so that we can increase teachers' pay, so that they're paid a fair and equitable wage, that they're continue to be able to collectively bargain, and that we have a high standard for teachers, and we continue to make sure that they're trained properly. So when we talk about education, I want to make sure that you understand, I've been endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers, I've been endorsed by Congressman Pete Visklowski, and I've been endorsed by the United Steelworkers. When you bring all of those components together, you have to understand that I am going to do everything that I possibly can to make sure that education is feeding the next generation of what we are going to have as economic development in our community, and making sure that you as parents and you as students and you as grandparents, that your children and grandchildren are receiving a top-notch education, and that we are effectively and efficiently producing results, that we have a high graduation rate, and we're able to open up trades to individuals as an option for those who aren't going to college, and we put an emphasis on that, and we incentivize the unions, and we incentivize school districts to be able to prepare people for the trades. And we also prepare people for a secondary education to be able to be our engineers, our doctors, and lawyers. My daughter Genevieve is 17 years old. She's going into that, and education for her and Scarlett are the most important aspect of our family life. And so allow me to be a congressman that absolutely is advocating for education, for our economy and jobs, and working hard for you. So the new slogan that I'd like to try is, come win with us. If you'd like to join us, please come to our Facebook page, which is Mervan for Congress, or if you can like that page, we'd greatly appreciate it, and we'll be doing more dialogue like this. Again, my name's Frank J. Mervan. I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress. I respectfully ask for your vote and support, and know that I will advocate for and make sure that public dollars go to our public education system, and we support our teachers, and we create the letter A education system that we can. Thank you very much.